Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I just finished watching Moon Knight Season 1, Episode 1. And I gotta say, it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. It wasn't great, but, I didn't feel like I wasted my time, let's say. So, everything it got right was the bare minimum it could get right, especially with the concept and everything they were going on. It felt very basic. Not bad, just kind of lazy more than anything else. I thought it was okay. It was okay. The problem is a lot of these other Disney Plus shows that I've seen, I've skipped What If and Hawkeye, but I've seen all the other ones. They start out really good in a lot of situations. I really like the first two episodes of WandaVision. I like most of that season, in fact, until those last couple episodes when the whole thing was utterly annihilated. So I'm not holding out hope for the season yet, despite thinking this first episode was okay. There was quite a bit I did enjoy about it, but also things I really hated about it. So it was a very mixed bag for me. Definitely didn't waste my time. Feel like I'll keep going with the series. It's not like when I started reviewing Picard when I felt like pulling out my hair while I was watching it. So I think I'll definitely continue doing these reviews for Moon Knight. It wasn't a waste of time so far, but there are definitely opportunities where it can crash and burn so quickly because there was very little plot in this episode. I'm going to be getting into heavy spoilers, so spoiler alert. It kind of did this thing where it was all from Stevie's perspective, while Mark was doing a lot of other stuff. Oscar Isaac's character's multiple personalities, you saw it all from this one perspective, where he was this awkward guy who doesn't know how to do anything and he's just an idiot for the most part, which is okay for setup as long as Mark is a good character. So I'm okay with the Stevie aspect of it for right now. But there was very little plot in it because every time an action scene was going to happen, he'd phase in and phase out and the action was over. And every time there was an important conversation, he'd phase out and phase back in. So we really didn't get a whole lot in terms of plot or character in this episode. So seeing how the next couple episodes fare will really depend on the quality of the show. We really need to see Mark. Mark is the main character, and we've only seen a couple seconds of him in like a mirror dream sequence. But yeah, it really just follows Stevie for the entire episode and him on the outskirts of this action adventure series where he suddenly finds himself, I think that was Austria, if I had to guess, maybe Switzerland, where he was spending the weekend and he'd like phase in and out. It was kind of weird how it was working. I do like that one perspective for just this episode. If they keep doing that, I'm going to get annoyed, but I think the second episode is all going to be about Mark's perspective during those same events. So first and second episodes are literally the same thing happening over, just from a different person's perspective. And that could get annoying if they do that for all 6 episodes. That'll get very, very annoying. But for this first one, it wasn't that big of a deal. It's just kind of how it works. There were some good things like Oscar Isaac. I think he played the character very well. You could tell he was acting to a stronger degree than the majority of the adult pretenders we have in Hollywood. He's actually giving an effort, and he actually has a fair bit of talent. So you could really understand Stevie more than I would have expected since he's not the main personality. So some interesting stuff they did with him. Oscar did a really good job. So did Ethan Hawke for what he was given. If it weren't these two actors, I really would have hated this episode because their charisma and their skill as an actor or actors is what saved the episode for me. If it was Brie Larson, it wouldn't have been any good at all because the plot was very basic and you didn't really see much of it to begin with. So they do make a fair amount of difference on the quality of the show. So they were definitely a good thing. The episode opens with Ethan Hawke doing this interesting ritual, which I looked up, and apparently is not a one-to-one ritual that's been seen in Egyptian mythology or anything like that. They seem to have made it up based on converging a lot of different rituals from different religions, specifically extremist Christianity. For someone who, in a lot of my writing that I've done, I do a lot of those fanatic religious characters where they're fueled by their fanaticism, and they do a lot of similar rituals that I came up with or were based on ancient mythologies as well. So that part, I did kind of like every time they were getting a little bit into the mythology aspect of it, and when they got into the mysticism aspect of it, I did enjoy it. And they seem to have done a fair amount of research to get Egyptian mythology correct, and I really appreciate that. And those are the scenes that I found myself enjoying the most. So if they keep that up, it'll definitely keep my interest throughout the season. And hopefully they focus on that aspect of it rather than woke identity politics like most of Disney Plus has ended up doing. So that was an interesting thing. We'll see if that carries on. And the other thing that was really good was the production design. A lot of the sets seemed good. I mean, they were bare minimum to convey what was going on, but they did good with what they were told to, I feel like, the production designers. In that bathroom at the very end, there's endless mirrors, like mirrors against each other, so it's an endless room. And it did a very good job at portraying Mark's mental state, and I kind of liked how his flat was just this chaotic, nonsensical layout, nothing that really would exist in real life, but it kind of portrayed the chaos in his mind. That may just be me reading into it and giving these writers far, far too much credit, which I'm fully willing to admit that they do not deserve that much credit, but I found it interesting from a production design standpoint, so we'll have to see if they keep that up and keep the technical aspects of the film to a good degree. Along with that, the technical aspects, the CGI was all right. There was some good CGI, there was some bad CGI. There was like this dog man that attacked Stevie at the end, and that was very rough CGI. They filmed it mostly for like shadow perspective and in the dark, so you couldn't tell, but yeah, it was pretty bad CGI. And that was right before his suit showed up for the first time. His suit looks good. It's the same shot we saw from the first trailer where he's in the bathroom beating up the monster and then turns around. It's fine. It does seem very fake. Like, you can tell the suit is pretty well CGI. And, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there were definitely aspects of it that felt very cheap. And which is weird considering the budget that these Disney Plus shows get. And you don't need to see any other Marvel property to get what's going on, at least for the first episode. It seems very detached, which, you know, it's all right occasionally to do its own thing. And, you know, it feels different from the rest of the MCU. Whether or not that's a good thing, it's not the formula yet. And that's a lot of things that these other Disney Plus shows have done. The first couple episodes break the formula only to get cycled back into the formula. WandaVision especially. Those first 3-4 episodes were not anything like we'd ever seen before, and then the last half was exactly what we've seen before. So maybe Moon Knight may be different now, but in the end it'll cycle back into exactly what we expect from Marvel from a political standpoint and from a generic standpoint, if nothing else. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the end. But for right now, I do like how it feels very unique. So I wonder if that might be why the budget seems so low, because they didn't want to risk so much money on this new idea. And I really hope that's the case, because if that is the case, it is new enough that they didn't believe in it. And that's always a good sign when it comes to these generic formula-based studios like Marvel has become in recent years. So I hope that's the reason. I doubt it is. Maybe they just got lazy. Who knows? But I really like the start of the path we're going down on. But I've also liked a lot of other things that the start of the path that Disney and Disney Plus has gone down, only for it to crash and burn. So I'm not holding out hope. I'm not optimistic for the rest of the season, but I didn't dislike this episode. There were some other things that were weird. I feel like, at least for the first bit of the episode, Quentin Tarantino was directing it. There were a lot of feet shots. Someone had a foot fetish on set, which is kind of funny. And one of the worst scenes is when Stevie goes to the museum for the first time. He's immediately berated by his female boss, and she is just a bitch. I hope they, keep that up and say, yeah, she's just a bitch and we hate her. And that's fine. That's fine to have a character like that, but we don't necessarily need to see him berated to such a degree to get that point across. It felt a bit much and a bit over the top a lot of the times, and I hope it's just from she's a bitch. We don't want you to care about her type thing. And it would be kind of generic if she just died and no one cared. And that's kind of what I want at this point, just so that it's detached. But if they kind of make her right in the end, and it's like, yeah, Stevie deserves to be treated like this, which they've done in other previous Disney Plus shows where, you know, a woman's being a bitch and she's right just because the man's pathetic. I really hope that's not the case. We'll have to see how her character plays out, and if Mark is just so much better than Stevie that it becomes a non-issue. So that was really some hard scenes to watch, is just her berating him. It may be better in retrospect, but from a first viewing, it was cringe. It was hard. It was very hard to watch. And another thing that was good is they they dialed down the comedy aspect of it. At least I felt like it did. Especially Marvel's kind of got generic comedy down to a formula along with all their other formulas. And the trailers for Moon Knight definitely implied a lot more comedy than there ended up being, which I appreciated. I usually prefer darker storytelling, so I liked that it steered clear of the comedy. The only one real joke was in the trailers of him, cowering from Khonshu in the elevator. The old lady shows up and he's like, "Oh, I was looking for my contact lens." She's like, "I hope you find it." That was about the funniest comedy or the most comedy they included. So I kind of appreciate that they're dialing back. But then again, it is just the first episode when they're setting up so much stuff that they may get back into formula in the later episodes. That's kind of what I expected this point. The first few episodes to kind of feel unique and then just get cycled into a formula. And we'll have to see if that's exactly how it plays out. Some interesting thing, the director of Moon Knight's been coming out with a whole lot of stuff about, Egyptian representation is so important, everyone is so bad for not doing it. Like, he specifically criticized Wonder Woman 84 for not having good Egyptian representation. I mean, that film can be criticized for a lot, but it didn't spend a whole lot of time in Egypt or around Egyptian characters to make that an issue. But I didn't see a whole lot of Egyptian representation in this episode, so that might seem a little hypocritical, but we'll see if that plays out differently in the rest of the season. Overall, my thoughts are very meh. Didn't waste my time. Didn't hate it. Kind of was like, there were moments I really, really did like, but there was enough that I didn't like that it just kind of ironed out to a meh. So I'd probably give this episode a 6 out of 10. We'll have to see how the rest of the season plays out, but again, not looking forward to it as a whole. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.